Hello and welcome back to another episode of Speak Greasy in association with the Australian Macadamia Society, which leads growth, innovation and sustainable farming practices and represents 85% of the Australian macadamia growers. Today's episode is back in India, and I have one half of the duo behind one of India's leading D2C brands, Two Brothers Organic Farms. Welcome, Satyajit. So great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, Gauri.
I have lots of questions, and I want to get right into it. So,
Awesome.
I'm not going to talk about your journey into Two Brothers because I think that's been spoken about a lot. But just in a nutshell, you are a farmer's son, studied economics and did an MBA, went on that corporate track, which was the obvious thing, and then ditched all of that to come back to your farming roots. And little over 10 years ago, started Two Brothers with your younger brother, Ajinkya. And here we are today. It's a fantastic growth story. But before we talk about, how the business has grown and what you guys are up to, I actually want to take a step back and talk a little bit about your childhood, because I'm assuming something, stuck with you and drew you back to that world.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So, like you said, Gauri, I'm a farmer's son. We come from an agrarian family in a small village called Bhodani. And my parents put us in a boarding school because farming in the last 50 years has become socially not very respectable, economically not sustainable. And they said, make a career and, a business or something outside the village and the farm. So they put us in a boarding school. But our summer holidays and our Diwali holidays were always spent on the farm. We came back to our old Wada, which is a stone mud house. In the front of the Wada, there were cows and buffaloes, and then the farm, where food was grown. And we experienced that during the holidays, and it felt very grounding. It felt very satisfying to be amongst that entire landscape. But we were conditioned that this is not the career you take if you take an education and if you want to progress in life. Go to a larger city, a larger country, and that is what progress means. When we started working, I think 4 years in the job, I was working with Citibank and Ajinkya with HSBC. We realized that we had ticked all those things that parents and society wanted us, but innately we were not very satisfied and happy. And when we reflected, we realized that we loved our time on the farm. And we thought, why not? One life to live, why not try it out? We are young. If it doesn't work out, we have options. But why not try doing something that we love for the joy in it? And that's how we left our job and came back to the farm.
While listening to you, this very much, I didn't grow up on a farm, but I also left a corporate, career with a Big Four accounting firm and ended up, starting a restaurant, which I knew nothing about. And it's different, not exactly the same journey, but I think the idea of taking a chance and doing something that, you feel passionate about, and knowing that if all fails, you can kind of go back to that, and having that fallback is something that really resonates with me. And I also know that you got a lot of pushback from your family when you decided to venture this way, which was the same thing that happened with me. There was a whole intervention that happened, and also I was going to be working with my husband to be, and that was also a big red flag. So there were several reasons. Most importantly, that I didn't actually know anything about hospitality when I was quitting this
Crazy,
stable career path, well-paid career path to do something crazy. And I think that's sort of a similar story for you. How did you still sort of get past all the sort of dissent from the family, so to speak, and pursue this idea?
Well, when we face this kind of, resistance from parents and everybody, initially we spoke lies. So I didn't tell my dad that even I have left a job. I used to tell him working from home, have taken a special leave off. And then later, after a year, he figured out that we are spending more time on the farm. because it was very difficult for him to comprehend that after getting a good degree and a good job in a multinational bank, why are you leaving and coming to the farm? Nobody in the village wants to even stay in the village. Everyone wants to fall out, and you have got wings, and why are you coming back? And we bulldozed through it. There was no other technique that we used. It was just about getting the brickbats, getting the all these societal negative
Biases, yeah.
biases, and living with it. And since we were both of us, we could vent it out and release the pressure between both of us.
You had each other's support.
We had each other, and we had decided very consciously that we will look inside and not outside for validation. If we are happy, the moment we stepped foot on the farm, we felt like this was the place that we were born to be, and we said, let's go with the inner compass and let's see. Life is, why tread on a path which somebody else has set? Let's see if an experiment and make your own, or try making your own at least.
Yeah.
So
oh my God,
that guided us. But
this is literally this is exactly, and I think that there's a pattern here, right? When you truly follow your gut and your just it's something, it's a calling in a way, right? That wonders do happen. So tell me, specifically how you started, right? Because I don't know how big the farm was that you grew up on, but what was how did you actually start?
So Ajinkya left his job force and came to the farm, and he started experimenting with conventional farming. Conventional farming is chemical-based monocropping. And a year into it, I left my job and came to help him on the farm. And we both realized immediately after getting data from the people who worked on the farm. They were like, 40 years back, sugarcane was 1 acre, we used to get 90 tons. Now with inputs having quadrupled, 1 acre gives us 35-40 tons. So we mapped it and we said, this is going to hit a dead end soon. In the next 20-25 years, the yield is going to go down. The soil fertility is going for a toss. The water holding capacity is gone. The biodiversity both above and below the soil is gone. And we're like, why is nobody else worried about it? I think everybody else is looking at it as a profession to derive money out of it. We had gone back to derive joy out of it. I said, in the next 25 years, there will be no joy. It won't produce anything. And that concerned us. And then we decided to look at alternatives. Organic farming, sustainable farming, natural farming, biodynamic farming are all synonyms for me. Basically, it is sustainable farming that we were looking for. And we realized that the so-called educational institutes taught nothing about sustainable farming. They taught you about, in the 4 years course, about conventional modern farming. We looked at farmers who were doing it in pockets across India. There was Ashok Ingole in Bidal, Dahiwadi, where he was doing this kind of farming. There was Narayana Reddy in Bangalore. There was Bhaskar Bhai Save in Gujarat. There was a lady called Dr. Alien Ingham in Rodale Institute in the US who did a lot of research on this kind of farming, sustainable farming, and how microbiology is so important for this kind of farming. So we took our information from disparate sources and we decided that the money that we have, we'll experiment in the farm that we have. And now my parents gave me a 14-acre farm. Total it's a 32-acre farm, but they said, take this 14-acre and do what experiments you have. And we decided that this 14 acres is our laboratory. Let's collate this information and let's execute it. And because farming is very subjective, you cannot implement something that is successful in South or East or North India. The climate, the soil, the geography, the know-how is very different in each pocket of India. And then we started our experiments on the farm and we loved it. There was no concept of we'll lose our money, what will we do after that. We loved planting moringa with pomegranate, a monocot with a dicot, plant a legume in the between to sequester nitrogen, and people are laughing at us. And we had no BSc agriculture degree, but it's like a garden at a large scale. Anybody who loves gardening will love to experiment and see what results bear. And we were so involved that we didn't look at anything else. And I think one thing led to the other, and things progressed slowly.
It's a long process, right? It's not like, and especially when it comes to farming, it's not something that you get an overnight
Absolutely,
result. So it really takes that patience, and you're talking about these things. So we have a small farm called the Table Farm in Alibag, and I learned about this thing of that you put border plants which are very fragrant. So we used to plant like basil around tomato, and I think the fragrance is like a natural pest repellent because it's so strong. And and then you think about it, like basil, tomato, and cheese is like one of the classic pairings, but it actually even works, at a base farming level. And it's just fascinating. And things like mulching and putting back into the soil. And
Absolutely. And quite a bit of farming.
no, I have like half a green finger, but yeah, no, it is something that I know every time I go back, it's like this, it's something you're creating in a way. I mean, you're not, but like you want to see how it progresses every time you go out there. It's like, you run out in the morning to see, has this grown, has this, like,
Absolutely.
and it is something that's it's addictive, right? You can't
It's also very therapeutic, I think.
yeah. But I know that you started out then, at farmers markets, right? And was that sort of just taking the produce out that you had grown? I mean, it's people go to the sabzi wala, like that's been done for years, right? So, how did that happen that you were going to farmers market? What was the response you were getting?
So the farmers market that we started is just down the road. It's at De Monte Park. And before we started this, I had a walk out there. I saw the park and came down. And I remember, somebody from Bombay called us, Pranaya Gidwani and Nipa. And they were these two girls who were organizing a program called 360 Women Wellness Festival at NCPA in Worli. And they told us, we have been following you on Facebook at that point of time. You're doing some good stuff. Why don't you come to Bombay and try it out? And they were accommodative, and we put up a stall on a Saturday. The kind of response we got after talking to people, out there. Before that, 4 years, we were only farming. The kind of knowledge we had in farming, the energy that we had, out here we saw it creating an impact. The next day was Sunday. And people around that told us that Sunday there's a market by Kavita Mukhi and you should put up stall out there. And so we called Kavita and she was kind enough to give us a stall. This was, I think, 8.5, 9 years back. That Sunday till this Sunday, we have never ever missed a farmer's market.
Wow.
We used to drive down ourselves for the first 5 years, 350 kilometers from the farm, do the farmer's market and drive back 350 kilometers. So 700 kilometers every weekend, Ajinkya and myself used to drive. But we love, people were telling us, are you tired? But surprisingly, we were never tired. We loved the fact to unload our farm stuff, put it on 2 tables, speak to community, crowdsource ideas, tell them why this food is good. Next week, see the feedback from them on how it's affecting their health. Call them over to the farm, get some people from the farmer's market, host them at the farm. We love this. And it's a different kick when you sell in person to somebody else and you see the reaction. There's an emotional connect. And that's something that's remained.
I mean,
today.
of course, like we all get off the energy that we get from our consumers, right? And our customers. And it's the same for us in our business. I mean, honestly, it's not the money that's driving us. It's that,
I can imagine.
that gratification that you get. And I completely sort of resonate with that. So you went from, this farmer's market to, I saw this on one of your videos that you started with 2 and now you're 5,000 brothers and sisters from 2 brothers. It's a fantastic story. I'm sure that's even a larger number today. But let's go back to this idea of, organic farming. I think one of the biggest hurdles, and I've seen this, in our little sort of plot where we were doing things, is that the need for speed is something that was obviously driving farmers. And, I want to come to the sort of problems they were dealing with in a bit. But that is what has led to using, chemical fertilizers, etc., because you want, faster yield, higher yield, etc. It may not be about the quality. How did you, as you were growing this fraternity of farmers, how did you convince them to shift their practices to organic? Because I'm guessing a lot of them were not following these practices, right? And like you said, they were probably, their land was degenerating and they didn't even realize it. So how did you convince them to change their practices?
So, I think we, in the initial, 6-7 years, we never ever convinced somebody to do this kind of farming. We did our own farm. We worked on our own farm. We kept it open for people to come and see the experiments we were doing. We noted down everything, collected data properly. I think after 4 years, people around were watching us, and the guys who had an intrinsic belief in this kind of farming approached us. and they said, we have been doing it, but we have no access to market. Can you help us? Initial 3-4 years, it was only farmers who were already doing this kind of farming.
Okay.
Out of some other reason, most of them were doing it out of a spiritual reason. They always said, no poison in the farm. Mud is like a mother. Let's not contaminate it. Let's give consumers good food. They had a conscience. And those were the guys who initially became our farmers. Now, after 8-10 years, when the movement has grown and people are seeing that, we're needing less water, our lands are becoming more and more fertile, and the value that we're getting for our produce is higher, while the yield is lower compared to conventional, it's making sense long term. And now people and farmers are approaching us, and our farmers become a model farm where they see how it is to be done. We have a team whom we call the farmer relationship managers, who handhold farmers without any cost from seed stage till harvest stage, re-educating them about organic farming, inputs for fertigation, pest management, irrigation, and then when the harvest is due, we give them a premium for their produce, which makes it economically viable for them to farm in this fashion. So all this put together has taken us 10 years, and I think it's a moderate success in a small way. It's a small proof of concept that we have proven now.
I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, right? That you may get lower yield, but it's a higher quality and higher value yield. So it doesn't really, on balance, they're still able to generate as much, if not more, than what they were doing before using sort of inorganic practices. So I think, yes, it's proof is in the concept in a way. And tell me, something moving to a sort of, staying on the topic of farmers, that I've read a lot about farmer suicides, right? And especially in Vidarbha, Maharashtra, in that sort of state. And what have you seen in your 10 years as to how that has sort of changed, or, has this kind of had any impact on that?
I would say not even a 0.0001% impact. The number of farmers are huge. 55% of India's population are farmers. So imagine the kind of people in farming. Farming, I think as a concept today and the way it is been designed from the last 40-50 years is not economically sustainable for farmers. I come from the western region of Maharashtra, where irrigation infrastructure is there, where access to market is there, where processing facilities are there. So it is slightly better than Vidarbha or Maharashtra. But those areas are yet very backward. There is very less investment going in the core infrastructure of building dams, canals, marketplaces, research institutions for crops that grow in that particular region. In Western Maharashtra, that is very well developed. You have sugarcane research institution, you have grape research institution, you have pomegranate research institutions, you have canals, like I said, you have all the other infrastructure. In those regions, it is not so yet. The awareness is low. The social stigma around farming is very high, and sadly it's the only profession where people commit suicide when there is no other option. I haven't seen any other profession where people resort to committing suicide. They have land, they're growing food for people, but yet they have to resort to committing suicide. And when you try studying this, it's not only micro things that affect this, it's macro, it's by design. Like I said, a very famous farming activist leader called Sharad Joshi, who ran Shetkari Sangatna 40-50 years back. He was based in Switzerland. He came back and he studied farming and the implication of policy making on farming, and he made farmers realize that it is not your fault. The government by design has made farming the way it is today. They wanted cheaper raw materials for industries to grow, and so they regulated farm output prices. And while inflation has gone in the last 50 years, farming realization for farming produce has not gone that way. Like my mother tells me 50 years back, 40 years back, one sack of wheat gave you 1 tola of gold. Okay, that was the amount of money you got from farming. Today, I'll need to sell 40-50 sacks of wheat to get 1 tola gold. So look at the inflation of everything else and look at the farming prices. They have not gone anywhere. So I think it's a macro design, and not only in India, farming across the world is no more economically sustainable unless subsidized by government. In India, if you study in detail, the subsidies are negative. They're not positive subsidies like European and American countries. So a farmer thinks it's his fault. It is not his fault. It is by design. And like you said, sadly so, yet this profession, the only resort is to commit suicide.
That's a very like dire situation. It's I mean, I guess you being in the business still, it's not sort of solvable. That is a very sad reality.
I mean, the
that
proof
we
of
live in.
concept that we have set up is successful despite these challenges of working in a farmland in a village and creating a brand that consumers love in the city. But I would say it's yet a very small concept. I would love if this kind of setup impacts majority of farmers and they get the right due and consumers get the right quality of food.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're a long way from there, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
A lot of
But
work to do.
hopefully, yeah, we live in hope. Again, sort of from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges that I see you facing in farming practices is climate change, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that is something we read about. And how are you dealing with that?
So, when we started farming 10, 12 years back, we were doing conventional for the first year. And we realized how, seasons have been changing. Like in 4 years, there's 1 year of drought. In every 2, 3 years, there's 1 year of flood. This frequency was 30, 40 years back was once in 10 years, once in 14 years. It's come to once in 4 years. It's come to once in 3 years. Like we all saw a couple of years back in Kerala, the floods devastated
Right.
the land out there. 6 years back in Maharashtra, droughts devastated crops out here. So climate is changing. Global warming is happening. The most affected are sadly farmers because their profession depends on climate. The reason why we switched to this kind of farming. So what entails this kind of farming? Sustainable. One is we grow perennials. We don't grow annuals, which you till the land every year and have to plant again. We do mixed cropping. We do heirloom selection of seeds. No hybrids, no modern, no GMOs. We do mulching. We do border trees, which we call forest walls. This all is climate resilient agriculture. So my solution to global warming is I cannot change global warming. I can change myself and prepare for global warming. So this kind of agriculture is what I'm telling farmers that, resort to it in a small scale. And this is what will save you all.
It's smart farming in a way for
Long
dealing
term.
with these sort of exigencies which are outside your control. Let's talk about your consumer. Organic is still considered a very sort of elitist, I don't know, maybe not anymore, but my perception is that it's still, an elitist sort of approach to buying staples. Has that been your experience that it is more expensive, which of course helps the farmers, but does that mean that your consumer is largely relegated to tier 1 cities because of the price point? And where do you see this kind of scaling beyond that, if that is the case?
So it is costly compared to conventional produce because, like I said, the yield is less. The quality is far higher. It is 4x, 5x, 6x better in nutrition than your chemically grown stuff. Also, the processing. So the way we make our milk to ghee, our sugarcane to jaggery, our groundnut to oil, the processing plays an important role. That's where large-scale producers take shortcuts and ensure that the ultimate product is low in cost. Here, there is no shortcut. So the processing entails no additive, no preservative, no binder, no filler, no color, no essence, no perfume. And to make food in that fashion, I need more of real food. Growing is costly, making is costly. So the end result is that the product is
Sure.
costly when you compare it to the conventional market produce. But today, with awareness coming in, you know that what people are selling you is not real food. In flour there is some mixture. In oil there is palm oil, which is allowed, and you're sold groundnut oil with more than 40% palm oil. In ghee there is so many vanaspati oils and all that is mixed to be sold as ghee. So every food has some of the other adulteration, and that's why it's cheaper. So right now I would say not tier 1 cities, but our customers are people who can afford, food at this price point. But as awareness grows, people are more and more realizing that it's an investment in their health. Cheap in the long term is really not cheap. In the long term, it's more costly than investing in your health, eating in the right food. And by choosing to eat the right food, you're not only benefiting your health, but you're benefiting a larger ecosystem which is growing it the right way. So I think people need to realize that cost also.
I mean, that awareness does take time. I
It
think that
takes, yeah.
education process takes a long time. I saw on your website that you had a campaign called hashtag Don't Eat Lies, which is sort of about what you're talking about. But the fact is that there is a lot of skepticism around things like certification, right? Especially I think in India, because there's really no way of the consumer being able to vet this, and I don't know what the sort of regulatory authorities exist, and how much regulation is possible. So given that, how have you been able to distinguish yourself as being a sort of true provider? Like, how did you penetrate the market and convince the consumer that you were doing it the right way?
So one is, the proof is in the pudding. So once people have consumed the product and our retentions are very high, our word of mouth is very strong. It's taken us 10 years. So we haven't grown fast. If I had to grow fast, then, I would have had to resort to shortcut techniques. But this is grown through a lot of word of mouth and a lot of people talking to people over the last 10 years. How we navigate the space around certifications and third-party validations is, organic certification takes 4 years to get your farm certified. My own farm is certified. Many of my farmers' farms are certified, but not all my farmers' farms are certified, because when I tell the farmer that, from day one, if I'm not going to give you a premium, but you have to change your practice, there's going to be loss in yields. After 4 years, I will give you a premium. No one is going to do it.
Right.
And the costs around certifications are very high. They are anywhere between 50,000 to 1 lakh. No small farmer can afford it. So now we have devised a path where we have an in-house certification team. We are subsidizing the farmers ourselves for the certification cost, helping him in maintaining his farm diary and all other compliances around certifications. After 4 years, then taking that material, of course. But within the 4 years also, we take the material, which we sell as non-certified to consumers. But we have our in-house laboratory with over 18 food scientists, masters in food technology resources, who test all the raw material that comes in from the farmer, all the finished good that goes out from the mega kitchen. We have an in-house NABL accredited laboratory. So a lot of comprehensive testing is done for the raw material and the finished goods. So we give that promise to consumers that though if a lot of our stuff is not certified, it's in the process of getting certified, we are taking the onus of ensuring it is clean. At the back end, we are managing this entire chain of farmers moving from non-certified to in process to finally getting certified.
Wow. So it's about transparency essentially throughout the process that, and I think that's amazing that you all are supporting the farmers through that process and not just saying, well, we'll come back to you once you're...
I will have to do it, because if I tell them, see you after 4 years, nobody's going to do it.
Yeah.
They don't have a strong chest where they have funds to invest for 4 years, and after 4 years, then they will get a premium. No farmer has it. Nobody has excesses today. So, having done farming for 4 years and having realized that there's loss in yields, having realized that if I don't pay a premium or get a premium, this type of farming is not sustainable. The solution has come through personal experience. It's a hybridized way of doing things. But ultimately, I want to move towards every farmer getting certified. How do I cover the 4-year gestation period is something we will keep fighting for. But that's what our aim is. Apart from just getting organic certified, we're also certifying our end product through third parties. So like recently, I think 2 months back, we became the first brand in India to be glyphosate free certified for our atta, oil, jaggery and ghee range. Now glyphosate is a systemic chemical that gets into plants, gets into your system and is linked to many chronic illnesses, especially cancer. And there's worldwide awareness around it. 99% farmers spray this weedicide which has glyphosate, and this weedicide brand belongs to two of the largest chemical companies in the world. Now, getting our produce glyphosate free certified through a third party. It's called the Detox Project in the US, paying for the inspectors to come, pick up random samplings, do this test every year. Maintaining complete transparency is a difficult task because even in the US, 67% of organic certified food has glyphosate residues. So, also benchmarking against the best certifications in the world is something we're striving for.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I didn't know about this. So I know you're saying there's a lot of awareness around it, but
Absolutely.
I don't think the average consumer actually is aware. So that's
And I think it
fantastic.
takes time for trust to build.
Yeah.
The average consumer is watching everything with a lot of suspicion. Many people have, built trust, broken it, because many of the brands that work today in this space are only brands that are based out of cities who do good marketing, branding, packaging jobs, know nothing about farming, know nothing about manufacturing in-house, know nothing about certifications. Everybody sources it or makes it from the same manufacturer who's making it for A, B, C, D, legacy companies, everything. The promise is different. There's a fancy brand ambassador who talks about the products, some good influencer who talks about the products, and then people later on realize that, oh my God, I have been fooled.
Yeah, I mean, comes back to that idea of transparency, and it's an open book. Your two best sellers are kapli, atta, and ghee, right? Honestly, and I'm in the food business, but till about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't even know about kapli atta. And suddenly, actually, someone gifted a packet to me on Diwali, a friend who always sends something healthy for the year ahead. And that was the first time I came across it. And I started sort of reading, and she'd written a note about why she was sending this. And I was like, great, like, I'm going to switch to this. And pretty much since then, whenever we have rotis, it's made with kapli atta.
Wow.
How did you zero in on this product, which has now become sort of your number one selling?
Khapli came about, 8-10 years back when me and Ajinkya were we were in the village and our mother had made lapsi. Lapsi is a traditional Marathi dish which has broken wheat, ghee and jaggery, and it's made on special occasions. So the lapsi tasted very different. And we ended up asking mother that, what is different in this? And she said, the wheat that we used is khapli. So we're like, what is khapli? She said, oh, it's a traditional old variety which no farmer grows now. We grew it only a small parcel of a land to make puran poli or to make lapsi. And then it interested us because we had an innate interest in everything traditional, and we took that up and we got it lab tested, and we realized this variety of wheat has 50% low gluten, it has 50% high fiber, and the release of sugar in this wheat when you have it is very slow. And it felt good after having it, no bloating, nothing. And then we grew it on 3 acres land the first year. We started spreading awareness about this wheat across India through videos, content, farmers market, giving it to people to consume, taking their feedback, tweaking it a bit. Today, fast forward 10 years, this wheat has become very famous. Large brands are getting into selling this wheat. We grind it on stone grinders with the husk, with the entire grain, no removing of husk and stuff. And it's a revolution now. Today we grow it with farmers over 4,500 acres.
Wow.
So it's taken us 9 years to slowly from 3 acres to 4,500 acres. And every year we will double now. So I think it's an accident that has benefited so many consumers. I get messages every day by people saying I had left wheat because of gluten intolerance, because of sugar in wheat and other stuff and bloating and stuff. But now with this wheat, it has changed my life. I've got wheat back into my diet and it's helping me. And we are paying our farmers 2 to 2.5 times the price for this wheat because the yield is less compared to modern wheat varieties. So it's benefiting both the category of people.
So since you brought that up, and I'm going to sort of digress for a bit, but since you brought up the price point, and that's fantastic that you're able to give the farmers better value for what they're growing, and that you've like revolutionized this sort of wheat in our daily lives. How does this compete with them also being able to grow for the masses that aren't going to pay this kind of a premium? Is there a shift? I mean, I know 4,500 acres is probably a dot in sort of what is being grown, throughout the country. But what how do you tackle that? Where, I did overhear you talking to someone about this issue of the government wanting to kind of cap the prices so that the Aam Aadmi can afford wheat. When you're offering such a lucrative alternative to the farmer, how does that sort of play itself out?
So I think there is a demand at this price point which is very huge in India. I believe there are many people in India who can afford this price for good food. Uh, when it comes to feeding the masses, I feel, over time people have been expecting food to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. When you analyze data, a 40-50 year back, an average household spent 14% of his income on food. Today it has come down to 7%.
Okay.
So the mindset is that I want food cheap, whereas my expense on everything else is growing. Everybody has a smartphone, which costs more than 10,000 rupees. But I want to spend less on wheat, less on rice, less on my dal, less on my food. So there has to be a mindset change, because when you want food prices to come down and down, the farmer has to resort to techniques which increase yield. That's the only way he'll get money.
Course.
And the only techniques that increase yield in the short term is chemical, more and more inputs. And that means the quality of food you're getting is far worse, So I believe that people should be made to realize that they have to spend more on food.
But see, the thing is that the average sort of, again, the average person who is having a very basic meal is, even if they have that awareness, the reality is they can't afford it, right? So does this lead you to have a clash with what the government policy is, which is to serve at the end of the day the masses? So does this, how do you get support, but at the same time, does this lead to a clash?
My question, to government is why there's a good objective to give people food that is affordable. Why does the cost of that initiative have to be borne by farmers? Why can't the government buy it costly from farmers and give it cheap to the consumers?
To subsidize, basically.
Why?
For the
I mean,
consumer.
today they're telling they've put an artificial block on the prices. There's a, essential commodities act. You can't increase prices. Farmers can't increase prices because consumers want it cheap. Who's bearing the brunt of that initiative of the government? The farmer. So I agree. Government is for social, is for society. Farmer also is a part of the society. I understand he's also a consumer, but devise a mechanism where you buy it from him at the right price, which makes it affordable for him to farm sustainably in the right fashion without using many chemicals, so that there is more nutrition in food, and then give it at a subsidized price for consumers.
So win-win solution is what needs to be sort of.
So today the onus of bearing, for the entire country, the onus of bearing a cheap price is on the farmer.
I want to just quickly ask you, you were telling me a very fascinating story about the Nolan Good, the date palm jaggery, the product that you have. Quickly tell us that story.
So this farmer of mine, Prithviraj, I think 7 years back, I was sitting on the farm and he came to me saying, my father planted this 6-7 acres of date palm trees to make Neera. Neera is a drink which is sold on the road. And he said, it has a gestation of 6 years. After 6 years, can you start tapping the tree? And he said, now we have started tapping the tree from 2 years. But the overall revenue I'm getting is around 50,000-60,000 rupees a year from 6 acres.
A year?
A year. And because Neera has a lot of complexities, it ferments to become alcohol, excise department raids you, there are many licenses required. And he's saying it's a headache. And I want to remove this orchard of mine. So I told him it's taken you 6 years for that tree to grow and become so big and finally start harvesting, and you want to remove it. I think it's a impulsive decision. Let's hold on and figure out what we can do with what we have. On the other hand, a customer of mine from Mumbai only called me and was asking me for Nolan Good, because our jaggery that we make on the farm is amazing, sugarcane jaggery. And she said, I want jaggery made from date palm, because I come from Bengal, and West Bengal. This is jaggery for us. We make our mishti, dohi and everything with Nolan Good. I was like, what's Nolan Good? She said, it's made from the sap of a date palm tree. And I realized that this guy has date palms. So we, went to his farm. We said, can we make Nolan Good out of this? So he said, no one in our entire Maharashtra makes this kind of jaggery. But he's saying, it's a simple process. Let's get some artisans from Bengal and let's try it. And then I think the first year we got some artisans. We made 400 kgs of jaggery and it was sold out. The year after that, we made 2000 kgs of jaggery. It got sold out. This year we have sold, I think, more than 12 to 13,000 kgs of jaggery, and his revenue from those 6-7 acres has gone up to 40-50 lakh rupees a
Oh my
year.
God, that is crazy.
And
What a
consumers
story.
got a product that is amazing in taste, grown organically, processed organically, artisanally made, amazing quality. So, and it's benefited both. I think just keeping your ears open to a consumer and your farmer, and making sense out of it is business.
Listen, this is a story that I want to end on, because it's such a high to even hear this. The potential for of course, income for the farmers, but what you guys are doing is just fantastic, and really, like, congratulations and hats off to you guys. I'm gonna just end on a sort of some fun question, but what's the sort of nuttiest thing you've ever done?
We had this byproduct buttermilk, and there was a Italian couple on the farm who was interning with us, and we were throwing this buttermilk and just giving it to the cows, and they said, let's make ricotta cheese out of it. And so we started boiling the buttermilk, straining it, and making ricotta cheese and getting it to the farmer's market. And it had a shelf life of only 3 days, so it was very difficult to manage that. But we could sell it for some limited period, and then it died down.
Fab. And what drives you nuts?
The ability, I think, to not to see myself disturbed in any business event drives me nuts, because I feel, it's not the external factor that can disturb you. It's your internal makeup, and somewhere there's scope for improvement. So that drives me nuts.
Fab. Listen, very, very inspiring. I really wish you guys all the best, and I hope you grow and grow, and go places with this, as you already are on that track. So congratulations again, and thank you so much for being.
Thank you, Gauri, for inviting us and this beautiful conversation in your lovely restaurant. Thank you.